G'day guys, welcome to this interview episode of the Aussie English podcast. Today I have my special guest, one of my students, Yong, who's from China, and he has been working his ass off on his accent for a long time. He's been working very hard. He is in the Aussie English classroom and has been using the Aussie English pronunciation course. He's been going crazy in this course to level up his pronunciation. So today I thought that I would get him on so that he can talk about his experience coming to Australia. He can talk about learning the accent, learning slang, expressions, fitting in, because he's been here now for a good slog. He's been here for a good chunk of time, I think 15 years. But yeah, he's been working his butt off. It's a really good interview. I think you'll get a lot out of it. And also, I want to announce that if you guys would like the Australian pronunciation course, you can now buy that separately. Okay, so if you are just interested in working on your Australian English, learning how to pronounce the 20 different vowels in English, the 26 different consonants in English, as well as go through exercises, learn the IPA, the International Phonetic Alphabet, and also have minimal pair exercises where you can learn those tricky different sounds that are very close. They're very close to one another, right? Like sheep and ship. Make sure that you sign up for the Aussie English pronunciation course. If you're in the Aussie English classroom, though, you already have access to this course, at least for now. Things are going to change in the future for new members, but if you want access to this course, click the link that I will provide and you can sign up for it. Anyway, let's get into this episode. Yong, take it away. G'day guys, welcome to this episode of Aussie English. Today I have special guest Yong on the podcast. Yong is from China. Do you want to give us, give us a bit of an intro? Tell us your story, Yong. How did you end up in Australia with such a good Australian accent too?
Well, hi everyone. My name is Yong. I'm from China. I've been here for probably 14 years. Thanks, Peter, for inviting me. Basically, I think I'm here to share my experience, although I hope that's going to be helpful. But again, I don't know. Basically, I did my study back in China and I came here about probably 14 years ago. I did a PhD in Monash. Basically, I found when I first came, I'm pretty much daunting about how much I couldn't understand the English because we learned the United States accent a bit more. And when I first came, I was like, what's going on here? Are they talking English or not?
What made you decide to come to Australia out of all the different, so you had like Canada, America, Britain to choose from. At the time, was there a big emphasis on Australia being closer and a much better choice because of that, or?
Yeah, sorry, I was a bit sidetracked. Because I was doing my master's degree, and then my supervisor had a good relationship with some guy here. And then the guy in here wanted a PhD student. And then I was recommended. That's what happened. Basically follow the trend other than anything was planned.
And so what was it like when you first got here? Was there a big culture shock and language shock and everything like that? What was the experience like?
I think culture-wise it was okay because we watch a lot of, movies from States, from Australia. So I think the main language, because we were learning English pretty much for 10 or 20 years. And I thought I'd be okay. But when I first came, because we had a seminar, I remember the first exact day on the afternoon. I was just fresh off the boat, as you may say.
Yeah.
And I was there and couldn't hardly understand probably 10%.
Yep.
I was like so shocked.
What was the difficult part? Was it just the pronunciation or the slang, the expressions?
I didn't know back then, but now I think because the contraction, the linking as well. Because in Chinese, if you're going to learn a word or a sentence, as long as you know how to pronounce every single word, you put them together and that's it. But in English, you learn linking everything together, and sometimes like a 3 words sounds like 1 word. And now that makes me lost, you know what I mean? Like, what's going on?
So did you have to pay attention to that and try and actively learn that? Or was that just something that came with time? The more exposure that you had, the more you sort of got your head around it and you could understand when people were contracting things?
I guess half and half, I would say, because I my wife is Chinese as well, so we don't really speak any English. Plus, she's not native speakers. If I had someone who is with me who's a native speaker, I reckon I could pick it up a bit quicker.
Yeah.
And I think since we started this lesson with you, I started to pick up a lot because no one has explained to me what's going on here. It's a bit slow if you go with a natural course, but I reckon if you could get someone to teach you, especially best ways to get a native speaker partner, I think if that's possible.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's what we've been doing, obviously, in lessons, because it's hard when you're trying to learn, and you don't have someone there to point out each time you should be linking words or not.
Yeah.
But have you noticed it helping as soon as you sort of had those things pointed out? Did that really help you be able to hear it when other people are using it?
Absolutely. Now I can pick up, that's how they say it. But before, kind of, I could understand, but when I speak in the same sense, I couldn't do it. But when you say it, I could get it. But again, I can't just copy it.
And so whereabouts in Australia did you move to, and how did you choose which city it was chosen for you, right? If you had to do the PhD here.
Yeah, basically everything's set up. So I just came to Melbourne at Monash University. Yeah, I started over there.
And how did you find it when you got here? What was it like? How would you compare it to where you'd come from in China?
I guess it's a lovely city. The people are so nice and also tolerant because, my language certainly wasn't great. But the people are so supportive. Everyone would slow down when they talk to me. Also, because I showed a bit interest in Aussie accent, so they teach me actually how to say it properly. That's great. The people here are lovely. The culture is great. I think that's why people come to Australia because this is a great city. A great country, got a great people.
So what advice would you have for Chinese people if they were to arrive tomorrow, say, and they're finding the language difficult too? Having gone through it yourself, what sort of advice would you give them if they came to you and said, Yong, I'm having trouble with the accent, I'm having trouble with the slang, what should I do?
There's no easy way to do it, which I didn't know. I thought I could pick up very quickly, but actually no easy way you can get better other than practice, expose yourself to the native speakers, watch news. I got a guy, I knew a guy who's from South Korea. He was my co-PhD student, and he was here probably a couple more years than I was back then. He was speaking fluently. I just asked him how he get to where you are now in terms of your language, and he told me basically watch news every day. Also talk to native speakers as well, basically, and you have to practice as well. Because,
No, you go, keep going.
Yeah, because I do know a lot of Chinese people. They can understand with no problem, but when they talk, that's a very thick accent. I'm still having accent, but their accent is much thicker. I think they just don't pay attention to what they say or what we say, just come out naturally.
It's difficult though, right? Too, I guess, too, once you're at the stage where you can communicate relatively well 90% of the time, you kind of don't need to work your ass off the same way to be able to get, to improve. And it also requires even more work, right? Like that last little percent, which we're working on now with your accent and pronunciation, that the smallest last little, 5% is often the hardest to squeeze out of the bottle, right? It's the last 5% of the tomato sauce bottle.
Right. Yeah, because I guess depends if you do have the motivation to push yourself a bit more. Otherwise, you could be living comfortably because you can speak, you can understand, you haven't trouble to communicate. But really up to yourself. If you want to speak properly, and sound a bit like proper English speakers, I reckon you still, need to put in a lot of work.
I think that's it, and you have to see it as a journey that keeps going. I don't think it sort of ends. You don't think, okay, well, I'll study hard for 3 months and then we'll be done. I'll be a native speaker in whatever language. You have to think this is going to be an ongoing process. Even me with pronunciation in French, which I've studied since I was 13, it's something that I have to keep paying attention to and practicing French pronunciation. And every time I get something wrong, take a note, sit down and be like, all right, I'll practice this sound again. Or, it's an ongoing thing, right? And do you find is it even harder for you as a Chinese person who's come to Melbourne because there are so many Chinese people in Melbourne. Do you want to talk about what that was like? Because you probably got here when obviously there was a lot fewer Chinese people than today. So do you want to talk about how that's changed and also what it's like trying to improve your English when so many of your own compatriots, people from your own country, live in the city where you're trying to sort of thrive, right?
Yeah, again, that's really hard. And I think if you only, hang out with your own friends, basically from your own country, you won't get improved at all. I know a couple of girls, they were really smart. They, they get some, foreign, like Aussie friends, like a boyfriend.
Yep.
They speak English was so much better, so much improved. After half a year, you say, oh, God, this girl talking in native Aussie accent, but for us or someone else who's only stay with your own friends from the same country, you really don't get anywhere to improve at all.
So did you have to, at the time, worry about, okay, I'm not going to try and spend too much time with other Chinese people because my English is going to suffer. My cultural integration here, if I'm planning to live here permanently, is going to suffer if as soon as I jump off the boat, land in Australia, I find, it's easier to hang out with other Chinese people and just, make that my social network. Did you have to pay attention to that, or was it just something that naturally happened, or?
I think that's up to your personality. If you are someone who like to know the new people and
Yep.
who like to make more friends, you wouldn't have any trouble. Again, you still can hang out with your own friends, after work. But during the work, you still got Aussie friends, and you can hang out with them, go out for lunch, talk to them about everything, and then slowly still can pick up a bit of English. But it does take a long time, to be honest.
And is it weird? Are there those two kinds of Chinese people you meet in Melbourne too, where you have the hardworking immigrant who's come here and wants to stay here, and then you have the student who's come for the degree and then is planning to go home, and so they have two different kind of views of what they're going to do when they get here, right? You'll have the one person who's planning to live here forever, obviously trying to really fit in and learn English. And then at least I found when I was at uni, there was a lot of Chinese students who just kind of wanted to get the degree and then go home. And so they weren't in much of, they were like, I don't really want to worry too much about, getting integrated or making a lot of Australian friends because I'm planning to leave after a few years, which makes sense. But do you find it difficult to sort of get along with those other kinds of I guess, migrants here in Australia, or?
And not particularly, but I guess in the meantime, if you're gonna make friends, you guys gonna have a common to share.
Yeah.
Like if you are interested in English, someone else say, don't worry about it. You're speaking good enough. Why would you bother? Why go out, have a beer or something, have a relax? But for myself, like, or someone else who would like to learn a bit and get a bit better, I think you mix with some people who you are alike, if you know what I mean. But I guess particularly, I didn't really think about that way, but I don't think I had any trouble to see or meet any friends like Chinese.
Yeah.
Or yeah, if that answers the question.
That's the sort of criticism I get, at least from the other side, right? Where a lot of, especially Chinese people that I've met at university, they would say it's so hard to meet Australians here. It's so hard to make Australian friends. And I would ask them, well, what are you doing? In terms of socializing, what do you actually do? And they would say, oh, I'll come to uni and hang out with my other Chinese friends, speak Chinese or speak Mandarin or whatever it is, Cantonese. And I'm like, well, clearly then it's hard for Australians to sort of insert themselves into that environment. So the onus is on you, right? Like if you want to get Australian friends, you can't wait for them to come and find you, right? You kind of have to go and find them. So what did you do in order to do that? Were there specific activities that you took up or places you went or things you did that really helped you, establish a better social circle once you were here?
Yeah, I guess, yeah, I was a bit lucky because I was doing PhD. Basically, the lab based. I'm sure you got a similar experience. So it's not classroom based. Yeah, that's right. I was doing that. And yeah, basically, we did have a lot of interaction with the people during the work. Also, we didn't have much Chinese student back then. Basically,
Yep.
I have to push myself to talk to like all Also,
Yep.
you have to go out, hang out with them because our culture are a bit different. Because if you want to meet your friends who have a different background, you may have to do the thing they would be interested. You
Yeah.
can't expect them to come out to your way, like doing whatever you would enjoy, which doesn't work that way.
It's almost like dating, right? As a
Yeah,
man, if you go out, it's like you can't just wait for the women to come up to you. You have to walk up
yeah,
to them and say, "How's it going? You know, where are you from? What
yeah.
do you do?"
And in the meantime, I guess that's a good way to learn your culture as well, to see what the guys doing after work and what they talk about. I remember the first time when I first came in during the lunch, we have a lunch table. You guys talking about something I don't know. I didn't know. I said, what's he talking about? Foodies and new words, new vocabs, and what's going on? I was like totally lost. I may have to fake my laugh sometimes. Oh yeah, that's interesting. Actually, I didn't get it.
But it's funny because for us, I mean, I'm sure, did you think at the time too, it's really awkward? Like, I don't want to ask, what does this mean? What does this mean? What does this mean all the time? But for us, at least quite often, it was always sort of like a pleasure when people show an interest in the culture or the language or that sort of stuff, or they get lost in a conversation because we're talking about footy or whatever. It tends to be sort of like, oh yeah, we get to tell someone and share this with them, right? So did you find that you had a good reaction from people when you would be in those situations? How did you deal with those situations?
I guess I was like what you said before. I felt embarrassed to ask you guys everything. Oh, what that word is, and what. But in the meantime, you guys are really really helpful. Like you said, whenever I'm gonna ask them any question, they slow down. They explain to me what's the background, what they're talking about. But you still with the feeling, you stop the conversation because everything flows really well, and then
Yeah.
oh, sorry guys, I didn't get it, and then
Yeah.
everyone else look at you like not like an idiot, but oh, this guy doesn't know what we're talking about. I think it can happen a bit, but not all the time. If you know what I mean. That's
Well, you have to sort of balance it, right? Because if you're doing
yeah,
that all the time, you might irritate people. But if you never do it, you're just going to be sitting on the outside, never learning or picking anything up, right?
right. I think I was basically I was just asking anything really critical. In the meantime, I probably got another 80%. If you know what I mean. If I got nothing, like I only got 20%, I just didn't bother to ask because that's going to take too much for them to explain to me. But if
Did you,
I already got 80% or something, I can ask a little
yeah.
bit. Yeah.
Did you have any interesting experiences with learning slang in Australia where you either heard a word for a long time and then it only clicked later what it was, or that you used a word and people reacted, in a different way than you were expecting, or?
Yeah, a lot. And I think I showed my interest in for the all these slangs, and the guy bought me a book. I think we have the Christmas Kringles. Is that right?
Mhm.
Christmas Kringles. Someone
Yeah,
bought me.
Kris Kringle. Yeah, Kris Kringle, where everyone buys the present for someone
Yeah,
else that they, draw out of a hat the name of that person at work or
yeah,
something.
yeah. I got a book which is all these slangs because I showed interest. I read through everything, but I think most of them you guys don't talk that about anymore. I think
That's the
that's
difficulty with those books. Quite a lot of those
yeah,
slang books tend to be, I think the people who publish the newest book get the old book and just copy and paste it and add a few new things.
yeah.
So it's been, they've been using the old words since, the 1800s or whatever. And so there's some stuff in there. But did you end up learning a lot of Australian slang? And
Yeah, I learned a fair bit, yeah, but some bad ones. I want to say that here.
you can tell me after the podcast episode.
Yeah,
But what good ones did you learn, and what was it like using them?
I think one of them was build a bridge and get over it.
That's a good expression.
Yeah, because some guy I think we had a guy who's got a Taiwanese background. He was a bit funny in a way. I'm not saying he's a bad person, but I think he's easily get upset. And
You mean with other Chinese people? There's a
yeah,
bit of conflict.
with everyone else, basically. And some guy just came out and said, build a bridge and get over it. I just said, hey, what does that mean? And he explained to me, oh, I got it. Yeah, build a bridge and get over it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's sort of like get past your problems, right? Like,
Yeah,
let it go.
yeah, let it go, leave it. Yeah, that's one of them. Yeah.
And do you use many other words, things like Arvo and Barbie and
Yeah,
those sorts of things?
yeah, I still remember the first time like my co-student who said, where are we going this Arvo? I said, what is Arvo? What is it? I said, afternoon. And now I know you guys normally put a bow after a lot of things, servo, Arvo, stuff
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
It was just a matter of learning the patterns, and then you can kind of
Yeah,
infer what they're talking about, right?
yeah. Once you know one, and you know, oh, this guy, and you guys talking about add a e after like a even the name Yongi, they call me Yongi,
Yeah.
and anything like it really like it sounded like really friendly and close.
Well, that's something worth talking about too. If you get a nickname in Australia, it's a very cultural thing where it means that you're sort of being embraced by people and that
Yeah,
it's a very friendly thing, as you say. So yeah, if anyone ever gives you a nickname, obviously if it's not a rude nickname, if it's just
no,
your name with an extra vowel or something like
yeah,
Peter or Petey, then
yeah,
know that it's because you're being embraced.
yeah. I liked it when they called me Yongi. I felt really welcome. But it's funny. You have to be careful. I remember one day, I know a guy whose name is Peter. We normally call him Pete because that's like close. And then
Yeah.
when I saw the other guy who's proper, academic role, and I don't know why I called him Pete, and he was a bit upset.
Really?
Yeah, he said, "Call me Peter, not Pete."
Yeah, sometimes that happens, I think, with the older generation. They'll be a little bit more, especially in those kinds of jobs where there's a bit more of a hierarchy. So I think, yeah, generally with shortening people's names, you'll do it when you know them and you hear other people doing it. But yeah, but it's funny, those sorts of lessons are important, right? Because how else do you learn those things?
Yeah, probably I didn't know him really well, but I don't know how I called him Pete. And then he said,
Well, if you're used to calling everyone you meet who's called
"Yeah,
Peter,
yeah."
Pete.
Just came out from my mouth and without being noticed. And he was a bit. Oh, he wasn't upset, but he just said, "No, call me Peter, not Pete."
Sometimes people are just weird too, and they don't like shortened names. So they'll always be like, just call me Christopher, not Chris.
Yeah, and he was proper, academic, and he's like a mid 50s or something. Probably he's not getting used to this shortened name. Probably not showing
Yeah.
enough respect. But that's fine. That's
So how
fine.
does it feel? How does it feel today, Yong, compared to when you first got here? How have you changed as a person? Have you found that you've changed as a result of being exposed to Australian culture or through learning English or anything like that?
Yeah, one of my friends said someone like us who's been overseas for 10 or 15 years, but who still spend like another 15 years or also back in their own country, we kind of lost our root
Yep.
because we kind of not like the people who's been back in their own country for 30 years. And also we're not like you guys because you guys are born here. So
Yep.
kind of we are in the middle. So I
Sort of
guess
on the fence, right? You got a 1 foot on each side of the
yeah,
fence.
it's a bit of funny position sometimes when I go back to my hometown. I had a different opinion about certain things from them, which is
Yep.
understandable. And back in here, I still would have something different as well, like different views. Because that's how I put myself probably just over the fence, one leg on one side. And yeah,
So
that's
how often were you going home?
probably once a year.
And did you notice a slow change as you were doing that, or was it a really quick thing?
Um, it's not quick, but it's obvious because whenever you go back, there's new words coming up, and you don't know what is that. Like
Yeah.
some words on the internet very quickly coming up, and I don't know what it means.
Yep.
Also, yeah, the way I guess the way you're treating people are different because I think I learned probably 60 or 70% Aussie ways now, which is
Yeah.
not common in China. So I guess
So
I
what, it's hard to turn that off and switch back into
look up.
Chinese mode when you go home.
Yeah, I remember one time you and Mikel talked about the calling people's name as well. Other than for the if you want to show your respect, you can't call their name, but I do even when I going back to China because I just forgot.
You mean
And
their
then
first names?
yeah, people got offended sometimes, which is understandable. But
Yeah, it
that's
must be hard,
yeah,
right? Especially
yeah.
when
So
it's such a deep cultural thing on both sides.
yeah. Also, we call you in Chinese. We have two different words. One is simple you. The other one
Yep.
is slightly different, but shows a lot of respect. People use the other like a nin. I don't.
Yeah, so you got
Yeah,
ni and then
yeah.
nin with the N on the end, right?
It's more respectful, but I
Yeah.
just I just can't be bothered to use it. Like why? Like probably I've been here for too long, but people do get offended. Like what's this guy's? This guy's just so rude.
Do they think that you're being arrogant if you do that sort of thing, like you see
Yeah,
yourself above those people?
yeah. We had a kind of meeting with the Chinese embassy a couple of days, or a couple of years ago.
Mm,
Um, I think just after I finished my PhD, and then I didn't use this proper name,
yeah.
and I could see we called them, official. The face was a bit strong.
How dare you not respect me?
Yeah, like what are you doing? I've got to get a new name and talk to you
So
later.
was
Yeah,
that something very difficult to get used to? Because I know that a lot of students, when they get here, they didn't realize how casual Australians are and how much we hate formality, and compared to even Britain, which we're pretty culturally similar to, but we hate the class differences. So quite often you'll have people who are in the upper class, say on an amazing wage, an academic, for example, who will quite often be like still using slang, using first names, wanting you to use their first name. So like my supervisors always at university had me use their first names, sometimes their nicknames. They would never get me to call them, Dr. Smithson, or anything like that. They would be like, oof, that's uncomfortable. So was that really weird to get used to?
very weird. It took me, I would say, it took me nearly a year to get over it because I just thought that's just so rude to call someone's name who's actually more senior. But
Because
later
that
on, oh
it's
yeah,
difficult, right? Though, because if you
very
don't do it, you kind of hold yourself outside of the group, right?
yeah,
If you can't match the formality or informality of that group, you kind of either seem to be weird or really rude, right? So
yeah.
was there a certain thing or anything like a certain piece of advice you would have in order to get over that? Do you just dive in?
I guess you just watch for other people, like what they do, and then also you could talk to some close friend, ask if this okay if I do this or not.
Yes.
I guess to get some advice from local people because you probably don't know when you first came in, yeah, which is very common, yeah.
Oh, exactly. And so finishing up, have you done much travel around Australia?
I have. I've been to South Australia. I've been to Cairns. I've been to Sydney, but mainly work related and half bit holiday as well.
Yep.
But yeah,
How'd you find them? What was the difference between somewhere like South Australia and Cairns?
South Australia I think is more classic, formal, like how do you put it? Like not laid back, as you said, laid back.
Yeah,
But Queensland or Cairns are like a more laid back people. They don't really care much. They're very easygoing.
could
I'm
be
not.
related to the temperature, right?
Yeah, but South Australia is more proper. Culture-wise, they're very conservative as well. People are really nice, but
Yep.
that's just properly presented, talking you properly other than like mates, hey, how you going, mate, and like
Yeah.
that's
So you had
Queensland.
that happen in Cairns, did you? You
Yeah,
had a lot of this. How's it going?
yeah, how's going, and yeah, it's really different. And also I watch the news as well. I think some guys from the Queensland are more talking in a strong Australian accent, but back in,
It's
yeah.
interesting. Yeah, I think partly, I reckon it must be because there's a lot more, what would you say, rurality, right? So there's a lot more countryside. There's
Mm,
the biggest city is Brisbane, which is pretty much in the lower southeast corner of that entire state. And then the rest of it is just small towns with, maybe 50,000 people max. And so I think a lot of them end up growing up in the country or far from the city. And so that kind of strong Australian accent gets reinforced quite a lot. Whereas mine, I think, dropped off when I went to Melbourne to go to university because all of a sudden you're surrounded with foreigners, you're surrounded with formal situations, and so you kind of have to make your accent a bit more cultivated compared to how's it going? Yeah, give us a
yeah,
shrimp, right?
yeah. Did you have this kind of accent before you?
I don't think it was too strong, but it was definitely stronger. And I think I use more
Yeah,
slang and I think it's kind of the opposite, right? Of you coming to Australia and having to learn the slang to fit in because you want conversations to go effortlessly. I think it was the same for me in the other direction, where all of a sudden I came from a town where it's probably 99.9% Aussie born Anglo Saxons. And then I came to Melbourne where it's probably, 40% less Anglo-Saxons, and everyone there, the majority of people speak another language as their first language. So you can't just go, how's it going, guys? Want to go to a barbie, the Savo? With everyone you meet in the street, because every single time you'd have to be like, okay, how's it going, guys? Would you like to go to a barbecue this afternoon?
Yeah.
And so I think you have to tone it down. You have to kind of, find that middle ground, because you don't want to repeat yourself all the time, right?
Yeah. Because of work, sometimes I go to the rural areas. I found those people down there not getting used to the foreign accent much, because you have to, like us, like foreigners, we have to speak a bit slowly. But in Melbourne, you guys getting used to it. You can understand
I think that's what it's all about, right? You're around those people, the people you're around all the time, you get used to. And so that's with Melbourne. Yeah, it is funny. It'd be interesting to measure the average, native born Australian in Melbourne and their capacity to understand foreign accents. Because for instance, the Indian accent is really difficult to understand if someone has a very thick Indian accent. But I think, again, from living in Melbourne for a long time, I'm pretty good with it now. But I can't imagine if you put someone like that in the middle of outback Queensland, people would be like, I've never come across this accent and I have no idea what he's saying.
Yeah, just like when I first came to Australia, I guess.
Yeah, it's not easy. But where would you live? If you could live anywhere in Australia, you weren't tied down to, say, Melbourne and a career here, where would you decide to live?
I think we like Melbourne a lot, but I guess in the future we're still open to other options as well. I guess mainly probably for the kids and also for our jobs. If we find a job in some other places, I wouldn't say no. But if you could stay here, I reckon I'll stay in Melbourne. It's a great city. You've got everything.
So how does it compare to, say, Beijing or Shanghai or Hong Kong?
I think back in Asia or China, we because of population-wise, we are really well serviced. Like you could go out anytime, you can get anything you want.
Yep.
I remember first time when I first came on Saturday or Sunday, nothing opened. Nothing. After 8 o'clock, the city is dead.
Yeah.
But here now it's getting better because of so many immigrants and everything's open up till late. But back then, you might remember on Saturday and Sunday when we were driving on this Springvale Road, that big road. It's hardly any car, but now it's like fully packed even on Saturday, Sunday. That's how much changed for the last 10 years. Yeah.
Oh, crazy. All right, Yong, thank you so much again for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it, mate.
My pleasure.
I have to get you on again in another 15 years and ask you how it's changed.
Yeah, hopefully I can speak as good as you are.
I mean, you just keep at it. You're doing well, but thanks again.
Thank you, Peter. Talk to you later.
All right, guys, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you got a lot out of that. I hope you learned a whole bunch, especially those of you who are Chinese migrants or students working in Australia, and you needed a little bit of motivation and to hear what it's like for someone who has been in Australia now for 15 years. It was an awesome experience to be able to talk to Yong. Don't forget too, guys, if you want to work on your Australian pronunciation, so you want to be able to understand Australians when they speak English, or maybe too, you want to get an Australian accent, you want to pronounce things the way that Australians do, sign up for the Australian English pronunciation course, okay? There'll be a link in the transcript, or you can find it on the website, aussieenglish.com.au under courses, the Australian pronunciation course. And if you're already in the Aussie English classroom, you've already got access to it. So anyway, thanks for joining me, guys. It's a pleasure as always, and I'll chat to you soon. Peace.